Hey, love, I'm so happy you've joined this powerful webinar. So, today I will be sharing the 3 mistakes that I see most women are making when it comes to dating and relationships and when finding the man that they're looking for. So, who is this for? This is for the badass, independent, high achieving woman that's hoping to find real intimacy. They're looking for a partner that is kind, loving, and amazing to her. This is for the women that are really exhausted of going on date after date or spinning their wheels in a relationship and ending up with men that are uncommitted and unavailable. And these women are looking for a relationship that has depth, emotional connection, and of course, commitment. So hang tight because in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you what most women are doing wrong when finding the man that they're desiring. And you're going to learn what's blocking you from building a loving relationship that you can have right now. So here are the 3 mistakes you're making that are bringing in all the wrong guys. The first mistake is that you're attracting what I call the fatal attraction type. So you'll learn what type of love you're attracting and how it's keeping you away from your ideal relationship. The second mistake you're making is suppressing. We'll get clear on how you're ignoring the warning signs from these men and what it's costing you when you ignore the wisdom of your body and your intuition too. And the third mistake is what I call the mirage of love, which is really about how the patterns from your childhood or even a traumatic life experience that happened to you later in life that are keeping you stuck in a cycle of bad dating and in relationships that don't go anywhere. And I want to ask you, does any of this sound like you? So, right now, are you feeling frustrated or heartbroken by the type of men out there? And are you silently worried that you won't find the right kind of man that will love you for you? And do you feel like deep down you're going to be alone and single forever? Or maybe that you're doing something wrong when it comes to dating or while even being in a relationship? And believe me, I know how hard it can be to find a real connection where two people bring the best out of each other. But the real issue here isn't that you're having a hard time attracting men, getting dates, or even being in a relationship. The problem is the type of men you're attracting, letting in, and essentially building a connection with. So, is any of this true for you? Are you typically attracted to the busy kind of guy? A man with the full schedule that when you two finally spend time together, it makes you feel like he put in a lot of effort. Does he make you feel special one moment, then uncertain other times? Are his feelings toward you hot and cold, even while doing all the nice boyfriend things? Or does he make you feel unclear or uncertain about how he feels about you or where you're headed? Does he leave you wondering when the next date is or when he's going to text you, making you feel anxious or like you're not a priority? And when you speak your mind, or you open up about how you feel, does he call you crazy or belittle how you feel or make you feel at fault? Are you labeled as being too sensitive? And does opening up and sharing what you want make you fear that you'll lose him? So it's just better to calm yourself down and not worry about it so much. And at times, does he make you feel like the center of his universe and then all of a sudden pull away? And did you ever get close to someone, give them their all, only to realize that they were incapable of loving you? And if you're being honest with yourself, you're not too sure how to make sense of your love life right now, but deep down, you're ready for a committed relationship, but you're really struggling to find it. So today, you're going to learn the main cause of what's preventing you from having the right kind of love. You're going to discover some tools and skills that you need to date more confidently and successfully. And then you're going to discover what I call the invisible thread that most dating and relationship experts are failing to teach. But before we get started, I just want to introduce myself here. So, hi, I'm Sarah Vasquez, dating, relationship, and transformational coach that is really on a mission to help women find a man that treats her like a queen. And after investing hundreds of hours dating, being in a few long-term relationships, and almost getting married, I want to share some deep truths about how you're going about finding love and why it's not working right now and what you can do to change it. So, I've seen what works and what doesn't, and I see so many women struggle with the same thing, and I've collected some real life data, and I want to share what's happening on a deeper level. So this webinar isn't on how to get the guy, but really it's looking at what's happening on an energetic level inside of you that's attracting these kind of men. So if what I share in this webinar resonates with you, book a call with me at the link below. Ultimately, my intention is to show you exactly what's happening on an unconscious level that's getting you to settle without you even being aware of it with men that can't meet your needs. So I'll be sharing with you how you can stop attracting unavailable men and be with a loving, mature man that values you. So right now, we are in a new dating and relationship paradigm where most of us are finding love online. You might be using apps like Bumble, Hinge, or Tinder, and hey, I completely support finding love online. But what's happening now is that experts are writing from a perspective of short term dating or asking women to do this or do that to find him. So let's just say for now that this kind of advice does work. How do you know that you're not attracting a man that only wants sex, that wants something short term, that's emotionally unavailable? And how can you tell if he wants something long term? Personally, this is where I believe modern dating and relationship advice falls completely flat, because having a long term fulfilling relationship has a different set of ingredients that I help women see and embody in my one on one coaching. And as the fierce, independent woman that I know you are, this fast food style of relationship advice doesn't attract a high quality man. In the last 7 years, I've studied and have become obsessed with learning what it takes to attract an amazing man. And I want to share some typical dating advice I see geared toward women that frankly doesn't work, and I want to explain why. For instance, to become the perfect package, which subliminally teaches us ladies to reach a level of perfectionism that's actually really damaging to a woman's confidence and self-esteem in the long run. Women are also told to be more vulnerable, but not too vulnerable, or you'll scare them away. You're marketed different beauty products, diets, and fitness regimens that promise to get his attention. And another thing I hear a lot, and what I personally see my clients struggle with, is this whole advice that says, just be yourself or be authentic, which actually does nothing if you are being yourself and still not find the relationship that you're looking for. And this kind of advice makes most women question if their personality is flawed when they get rejected by a guy for quote unquote being herself. And these are just a few, frankly, short term garbage advice that doesn't find, attract, or keep an awesome man. So, what are some of the consequences of this kind of advice? The majority of advice that's given by relationship experts or what's shown in pop culture, like you see in magazines and blogs and social media, are what I call surface level tactics that work on manipulating or creating a false self to attract a guy. And yes, these surface level tactics will work, but they won't attract the man that you're looking for. So collectively, you're being told the wrong information. So, what's happening here is that our culture is essentially creating surface level tactics that are denying the needs of how you're feeling and how you're actually experiencing the date across from you. And most dating and relationship gurus really have it all wrong, because these sort of tactics don't work long term. They teach you to become something that you're not, and who knows what kind of men you're attracting with this sort of advice. So if you're really looking for a real partner, which I know you are, otherwise you wouldn't be here, this sort of advice won't get you very far. And I want to share with you how this webinar is not about using strategy or changing yourself to be this or that, because I know that's not the real issue here. I'm really here to show you how your unconscious, what you don't see just yet, is responsible for attracting partners that are unavailable, that won't commit, that are self centered, that leave you in a state of wondering and in limbo. Your unconscious, what you don't see, and what I help so many women with, is what's robbing you of love, and how the men you're having intimate relationships with are really making you feel anxious or confused about where you're headed. So, here you're going to finally discover the three mistakes you're making when it comes to dating and relationships and building true connection and intimacy. Now, what I want to make very clear is that there are deep, ingrained habits and patterns inside of you that are unknowingly attracting men that are emotionally unavailable and not ready. So that kind of begs the question, like, why are these guys even on dating sites in the first place? And that's what I want to break down with you on this webinar. I want to help bring more awareness into your life so that these kinds of men are no longer wasting your time or leading you on or breaking your heart. So the number one mistake you're making is that you're attracting what I call the fatal attraction type. At some point in your life, you've probably been in a relationship with the quote unquote bad boy or the rebel. But these kind of men that I'm talking about in this webinar are a little bit sneaky and fall into that gray area. You've probably been on dates or even in a relationship with a man that was actually nice and gentlemanlike on the outside, but when it came to talking about a concern or your feelings, or maybe something that you might have needed, it may have looked something like this. The fatal attraction types essentially leave you wondering about the status of your relationship. He tends to keep it day by day and really casual and has a hard time committing. And usually these women stick around because they're waiting for him to change and to commit to them. And I see a lot of women waiting around for a man like this for months or even years. Another fatal attraction type tends to withhold his love, and he might do this physically, where he may not hold your hand in public or make you feel like you're not dating while around his friends. He also sends really confusing signals. For example, I had a past client where she told me she got friend zoned, but he says that he's not ready, but still continues the relationship where he's being romantic and flirty and still wants to have casual sex. Another fatal attraction type doesn't really have clear communication. So when you guys get into an argument or a disagreement and you want to talk about it, he usually avoids or ghosts you, or can even be hot and cold. He can also alternate between really affectionate and kind and giving, like being generous with his words and maybe gifts, but then can say or do something that puts you down or just makes you feel like crap. And he also can go on these breaks with you and say that he needs space. So now we have an idea of how this fatal attraction type acts, but I want to reveal what most women go through while dating these guys. I want to share what reactions actually stir up inside of you with the fatal attraction type. How you react and feel with these sort of men is a huge indicator that you're with an emotionally unavailable man. And I want to jump right into the emotional. So when we date these sort of fatal attraction types, they typically make us feel really anxious. It can feel really crazy and intense, and we can feel excited, but then it can also take a nosedive where we feel confused or unstable or on edge and uncomfortable. And sometimes what he tells us or how he makes us feel can actually make us feel shameful or shut down. And just by him avoiding conversation and how you feel, you tend to feel unheard or undervalued. And when you shut yourself down, you're essentially hiding parts of yourself because he's not making you feel comfortable for opening up and sharing your heart space. On the physical plane in your physical body, it feels like this relationship is like a roller coaster. It feels up and down. Some physical symptoms that can happen are you might get a stomach ache, you might get a racing heart. Sometimes it can feel like heartbreak. I know personally when I dated these sorts of types of men, I was losing sleep over it. I was getting so burnt out from wondering where we were going or how he was feeling. So I was constantly getting drained and I was crying a lot over these kinds of guys. And I was finding that my body was like my nervous system was actually really anxious and sometimes I'd get short of breath. Um, and intuitively, something deep down usually feels off. And when we date these sort of fatal attraction types, they tend to like pull away or put us in this back and forth motion and dynamic of the relationship that we as women tend to overextend. We tend to please. We tend to put his needs first because we want to show him how of amazing person that we are. Or you may even convince yourself to be more grateful or kind or patient to this sort of guy. And there is a tendency to be overly empathetic to the point where you become the helper or the healer and you no longer care about how you're feeling about the relationship. The focal point becomes around him, unconsciously, of course. What's happening here is that when you become the helper or the healer or put his needs first or forget about yourself, you are essentially abandoning yourself. And I'll explain. So, as I was healing my own relationship stuff years ago, I remember talking with my coach about this, telling her that I always tend to empathize with people and being nurturing and caring is awesome. But I found that in my love life, it was causing a lot of damage to my health and my emotional well being because when I was with a fatal attraction type, I had this habit of completely neglecting what I was needing because I had always put myself in their shoes and was way too understanding toward, frankly, their unexcusable shitty behavior. And I've realized how this subtle act of abandoning myself over and over again and focusing my energy on men that don't know how to be in a healthy relationship had everything to do with the traumas I had experienced in my childhood. The second mistake you're making that's attracting the wrong kind of man is suppression. And ladies, this really translates to denying your needs over and over again in very subtle ways that have a really huge compound effect on what you're allowing as acceptable when really it's toxic and unhealthy behavior. I really didn't understand this until I started getting out of my own patterns and learning from quality men that showed me what a healthy relationship looked like. But it's so hard to see it while you're in it. And it's exactly why I created this webinar because I have so many amazing women like yourself that are feeling exhausted from chasing love, from feeling like they're not a priority. And what I see happen is that they self blame and think that there's something wrong with them when that's actually not the case. When you suppress your emotions or your feelings or what you need, this is really looking like you have a fear of expressing what you want because you don't want to come across as needy or clingy or you'll scare him away. And full expression is a turnoff for the wrong kind of man, but for the right kind of man, it isn't. Suppression at times, like you don't know what you're feeling or feel uncomfortable expressing what you want to this type of man. Essentially, you're denying parts of yourself for fear of him not really seeing you or loving your quirks or loving you for who you are. And when you suppress your feelings or parts of yourself, this manifests as hiding. It can create a lot of drama or fighting or arguing because you're not able to fully express how you're feeling because this person doesn't make you feel comfortable. And what's really happening here is that deep-rooted, unexplored feelings and emotions are steering your love life when it comes to dating this sort of guy. So suppressing your needs and feelings also means that you justify his behaviors and ignore how you feel. You don't think that your feelings are valid, and you're likely highly empathetic, and you tend to tune into how he's feeling at the expense of your own. And if you're being honest with yourself, you don't know just yet how to listen to the wisdom of your body or what healthy boundaries look like because you've learned how to disassociate from how you're feeling and what your body needs because you're so in tune with how this unavailable man is treating you and making you feel. And this requires for you to listen to the wisdom of your body. It requires a lot of self-trust, which stems from feeling worthy of trusting yourself, of believing that what you're going through and what you're experiencing with this man is actually valid and it's real. And because you don't know what healthy boundaries look like, by no fault of your own, you may have a hard time saying no when it comes to someone that you're into. And it takes a lot for you to genuinely be into someone. And I completely understand that. So when that happens, the red flags tend to get ignored by the more positive emotions, the excited emotions, because you finally have connected with someone that you're interested in. Ignoring the red flags are a result of you ignoring your feelings, your body, your emotions, and your intuition. The third mistake you're making is what I call the mirage of love, which really translates into that you're attracted to emotionally unavailable men by an unresolved wound, trauma, fear, or unconscious belief that has caused this pattern that is not visible to the rational mind. So, in other words, you're matching up with these men from a pattern that hasn't been explored or fully healed or integrated into the self. So, this has to do with the type of love you received as a child, the relationship that was formed by your parents, the bond that was developed either negatively or positively has an impact on you as an adult. And in the rare case that you actually did come from a healthy and loving family, something traumatic probably happened that either told you that you were unlovable or broken in some way. Maybe it was a bad breakup, or you were with an ex for a while and saw his true colors over time. So, how does this relate to the kind of men you attract now? Here's how a really empathetic woman finds herself in an emotionally unavailable or with a narcissistic kind of man. And I work with these women and talk with them every day. And this is what I see happening as a result. It's an epidemic that these women find themselves attracted to, who some would call narcissist. And we're not going to get caught up in what they're called, but they're usually the kind of men I've talked about in this webinar. They're self-centered. Everything revolves around them, and they're looking to you to look a certain way or be a certain way, not too dramatic, not too this, not too that. And they never end up giving you the full devotional commitment that you long for. And so these women who know how to nurture and caretake find themselves with these men. And that's because usually in childhood at some point, they weren't emotionally met by their parents, resulting in unhealed emotional wounds. And as a woman, you will continue to attract the same kind of love you received as a child, even though your physical and superficial needs might have been met. You might have started orientating out as a child early on to either perform or be a certain way so that you would receive love and not hate or disdain or anger from your mom or your dad. And that right there is exactly what sets up a pattern. It is actually a neurological nervous system pattern where you learn how to be loved, to get your needs met by doing that. So therefore, you're running the same psychological and neurological blueprint right now while looking for love, because to you, it may feel like the same thing, even though it's not at all what you want, interestingly enough. But that's how patterns get started. And I've talked to dozens of women, and there's some resemblance of this. Their parents weren't emotionally capable of meeting their needs in a real, true, and tender way. And so the child started orienting. And especially women are plagued with this more because we've been taught to be caretakers, to be the good girls, and all this crap. So then we grow up thinking we're supposed to caretake and be good girls to get love. And it doesn't work. We attract the wrong kind of men that can't meet our needs because they haven't yet healed those patterns within themselves. Essentially, this rewounds you. And until you clean up this pattern, you will actually only be attracted to these kind of men. And you can be sitting there thinking that one fine day your prince is going to show up, that one day it's going to change. But this is a pattern that needs tending to. And it's always going to be your pattern unless you get to the bottom of it and heal that part of her that's inside of you that happened very early on in life. But this is a pattern that needs tending to. And it's always going to be your pattern unless you get to the bottom of it and heal that part of her that's inside of you that happened very early on in life. And I'll be honest, you can keep going and try to do this on your own, but you're going to keep doing the same thing because you've always done the only thing that you know how to do. This is a much deeper issue where most women are thinking, maybe I haven't met him yet, but it has nothing to do with that. I'm just being really honest with you here that if this is the pattern and what I've been talking about over this webinar is your experience in your dating and love life, it's not going to change on its own because really, how many times have you been attracted to the nice guy? Probably not very often, because emotionally available and kind guys right now are not physically attractive to you. They don't actually turn you on because the bond you developed in your childhood with your parents is what your nervous system and emotions have gotten used to. Your body has gotten used to a certain reaction and response, and that's what's feeling normal and gets often mistaken for feeling like real love. So if these are some of the things you've experienced and this dynamic has been repeated for you, like it was for me for a while, and all the women that I've worked with, I just want to be so brutally honest with you that this is not going to change until you actually tend to yourself, your needs, and your wound. And the really good news is that there's a way to heal this and integrate the shadow from your early childhood so that you can actually create deep intimacy with someone. And that the bonds that you form during childhood really recreate the type of intimacy you're attracted to on an emotional, physical, and spiritual level in a very unconscious way. And how the patterns from childhood are really determining and picking the sort of dates you go on and the kind of man you allow into your heart, all stemming from an unhealed wound. So how can you put these shifts into practice? Number one, you're going to have to uncover the hidden patterns that are depriving you from the love you deserve. Number two, you have to understand how suppression shows up specifically for you. And number three, you're going to discover the unhealthy patterns and the types of men you're attracting and how to really avoid the trap of wondering where you're headed or guessing how he feels about you. So how can I help here? Again, you can either do this on your own and do it alone and try to figure this out as you have been, but I'm here to really match up with women that are really wanting to get over this hump and attract a quality man that they're yearning for, that they really want a relationship with. So if you want to speed track your dating and intimacy right now, I want you to take me up on a free 55-minute relationship rescue coaching session where I will personally unlock the code for you on how you can attract these amazing men into your life. But before we do that, I just want to explain who this is for. You must be 100% all in and committed to your growth. This isn't about sugarcoating. This is actually looking at your shadow. This is deeper work. This isn't about surface level tactics. This is for really the women that have a standard for their dating and intimate life and want to get out of the rat race of dating all the wrong guys. And this is genuinely for the women that want to learn what's getting in the way of finding the love that they deserve. And who is this not for? This is if you're not interested in making an investment in yourself to learn more deeply about yourself when it comes to dating and intimacy. And again, this is not for the faint of hearts. Anything that's challenging requires you to step up and open up and share your feelings and fears and vulnerability. And this really isn't for a woman that's not ready to make huge shifts in how you're dating and cultivating intimacy. So why I'm so passionate about this is because I truly do believe that you deserve to love and be loved in a way that lights you up. I'm passionate about helping strong, independent, and beautiful women succeed in dating and in their relationship. And I believe that truly, if we heal and reconnect to ourselves more deeply, we'll collectively transform our well being, the relationships that we're in, the relationships that we attract, and the planet as a whole. And before we sign off here, I really want to ask you, truthfully, how much is it costing you to stay where you are? How long do you want to stay stuck in the same cycle of dating and going on dates or finally connecting with someone only to have him break your heart and not value you? How many more painful conversations can you have with your friends about the way he treats you? Because I definitely know that it's not with love and kindness. And how much longer do you want to wait around for the right one to come along? So I invite you, my beautiful, to click the link below and schedule a call with me. I have very limited spaces available. I'm opening up this window for a limited amount of time. So I suggest that you sign up right away.